Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with another one. It is Brian S. Arnold here, The Authority Project, and I have my new good friend here, Marty McDonald. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Brian. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, he says today that he's going to show us how to tell stories with digital marketing. Is that right, Marty?
Absolutely. It's most important to tell them today for sure.
Well, we shall see. We shall see on this amazing episode of The Authority Project.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, feast your eyes and tune your ears. It's that time again. We are live with another episode of The Authority Project. It's the video podcast streamed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope, where we talk to digital marketers, business coaches, and creators of all kinds on how they've built authority in their field and how you can mimic their success. Developing authority, building your audience, and attracting better clients to your own business. Now, without further ado, let's bring to the virtual stage your host, Brian S. Arnold.
All right, we're here with another one. It is Brian S. Arnold here with The Authority Project. You are the project, and you want to slap authority to your name so you can sell more of what you're great at. And we have Marty McDonald in the house, and I'm excited to get going with this particular topic. But before we do, first of all, tell Marty who you are personally and then professionally.
Absolutely. My name is Marty McDonald. I am live just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in Westchester, PA, where actually our business is located, Bad Rhino. Been playing around with digital marketing for a long time, then eventually became my agency. But outside of that, I like to travel when you can. Right. I like to interact with people and play a ton of golf. So that's just a little bit about me there.
Nice. Okay. Do you have a current project that you're working on at the moment?
We've got a ton of projects at Bad Rhino. So we're a digital marketing agency. And it's funny, this is perfectly timed, Brian, because one of the things that we hear a lot about is telling stories, right? Marketing is essentially telling the story so that customer can go through that journey with you. And at the end, hopefully buy your product or service. Whoops. Knock my hat off here. So like talking about those things has been the main focus of our, agency, but then also has been the main focus for, marketing in this past year where people are looking to cut across the noise. So one of the projects that I'm working on actually is becoming a story brand consultant for our agency. So we're working with a lot of clients that are implementing story brand. So it's elaborating on that story and making sure that they're all in tune from an organizational standpoint and it bleeds into their marketing. And, that's one big project. The second one is actually getting the story of Bad Rhino out there more. So yeah, those are the two big ones outside of our other 40 clients that we have. Those are the things that we're working on for sure. And like I said, this is perfectly timed because I think a lot of people are looking not only how to get better at digital marketing in a digital world, they're also trying to learn how to tell their story across all these different channels.
Awesome, man. So one last question before we dive in.
Yeah, man.
What does your daily routine look like, Marty?
My daily routine usually starts in the morning with a light workout, and then a couple times a week I do see a trainer, but it starts there. I usually listen to something in the morning that is business related, more mindset business related. So I have a couple books and a couple podcasts that I kind of rotate through. And then from there, I try and tackle like mini tasks before any meetings. That means just quickly getting out any emails that need to get out, getting out some little things, and obviously having some breakfast before then too, and a cup of coffee. Yeah. But yeah, I try and start very similar every day, at least about 4 days a week, follow that same pattern. The other 3 are very similar, but they're slightly modified. A lot of working out. I've been working out religiously for about 5 years, but really been doing a lot of different things over the past 2 years. And I've been trying to keep a morning habit more so than a night habit recently and trying to make that shift. But my brain is like, sometimes my brain likes to work at night.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's great, man. So let's dive into the topic. Why is it important to tell these stories with digital marketing? First of all, let's go with that question first.
Sure. Well, when you stop and think about it, like just us as a society, human beings, like everything's always been passed down in story form, right? And you forget that with all the technology. So everything was always told to you, right? They would tell you a story. Your parents would tell you a story, an uncle, a friend, they would tell you stories about what happened in the past. And all those things elicit a certain response, right? So it pulls out a certain response in you and it makes you connect with that story. Like you can relate to it or you cannot relate to it. And both are actually equally as important, pushes and pulls there. So when you have it in marketing, what you're trying to do is reach a buyer at a subconscious level. And stories are the best way to do that. Let me tell you the story about Brian. He started this great podcast called The Authority Project. And let me tell you about the people he interviewed. But the one person that he interviewed really piqued my interest because, and then your story starts, right? Yeah. And that will get you, rather than go, hey, you should check out this great podcast called The Authority Project, right? You know, so like telling that in that form, but people get confused because now you have what? Netflix, Amazon, you have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, blah, and on and on and on. And you get worried about the channel rather than going back to the basics, which is, let me tell you a story about this and why somebody uses my product or service. And that is more apt to pull people in, get them to opt into your emails, get more information about your product, and then ultimately buy your product.
I love how you said that. Cause my next question was, what's the blueprint? And I think you already just gave it to me. you gave me the actually, I think you answered my next two questions. What's the blueprint and what are the fails? So,
yeah, let me touch upon the blueprint a little bit more, if that's cool, Brian. Like you're doing this on, you're going live, through we're doing this through video, obviously.
Yeah.
So once you have that, like that's kind of like what you're thinking about is like you decided to do a video podcast, right? So you're pushing something out there. Then after that, I'm sure there's a post going out on Instagram. There's a post going out on Twitter. There's something else, so on and so forth. So once you have that strategy, don't overcomplicate it. Create the piece of content, push it out. Create the piece of content, push it out. But there also has to be the overarching blueprint, which to me would be, well, what's the Authority Project? Now that's where your story starts, right? Like kind of how we let it off, rather than just saying, here, listen to this podcast. Let me tell you about this gentleman, Brian, that I met. Great guy, and I'm telling them that story and like, oh, how'd you meet him? I was on this podcast called The Authority Project, and you can watch it on YouTube, and here's the link. So the blueprint in that story, you pick the channel that you're going to produce a content. So if it's written, you're going to probably produce a blog. If it's video, then probably YouTube. If it's, something that is just audio only, then it might be on Spotify or Apple. But then you want to take that and then you distribute it through those channels. Don't worry about like, hey, I'm going to produce this and put specifically on Instagram, right? And worry about Instagram. That's just a channel to push it out to have an audience. So don't want to go too far into that, but I think that just needs a little bit more color of what the actual strategy is.
I love it. That's great stuff, man. So let me go dive deeper into like the fails. Cause like it sounds great what you're saying, but is there a way where people can tell their story and it be a fail? Like, doing it the wrong way?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to get into specifics, but I think you see it almost every day in some way, shape, or form where so-and-so fails because they're advertising over top something, a world event or something that happens, or they're just being goofy or insensitive or something stupid, right? But they think at that moment, for whatever misguided reason, that that's the right time to do it, right? So that's one way to fail. The other way to fail is not having a cohesive story, right? Mm-hmm. Where you haven't really thought, like, just think of any story you've ever had read, or a movie, even better. There's always a beginning, middle, and end. There's normally a hero in there. There's some sort of person that you're going to cheer for or root against, right? And then eventually they'll have somebody that kind of comes along and helps that person. Like, you can just take any movie that you're thinking about right now, right? So just think about a movie. Let's not talk about the movie. Just think about the movie that you're talking about, right? Yeah. Or thinking about, rather. And you just think about that, and then there's a beginning part. Okay, there's some sort of problem, there's some sort of issue, and then all of a sudden that person is kind of going through, oh, okay, this person's the main person here, okay. And then they go through, and then there's something that happens that either helps that problem or makes it worse. And then there's normally somebody that comes in at some point, or a solution that comes up, and it's like, oh, this is what we need to do. And then you start to go towards the end, and you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, where you have somebody that's solving an issue or a problem, or it's going to either bring more problems, and that's where the sequels come in, right?
Right,
But you're telling a cohesive story with a beginning. What do we got? What's the problem that we solve? So if you're thinking about it in a business term now, not a movie term, what do we have? What's the story behind that product or service? And how can you get it to solve your problem? Simple as that.
Absolutely. I love it. So let me ask you this, because I think that whole scenario was great. And I just want to tell people, like, well, no, this is something I heard before, like, no one likes the victim. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
No,
Yeah.
so like you're saying, the story has to have some kind of happy ending somewhere. because I feel like going out, like, like, I just spent all this money on this course and I don't have any more money. I'm broke.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the end of the story. You're like, okay, I don't want to be chopped by this guy. So,
Right.
so there has to be some, I think that's the challenge with people. Like, they're already in the story, but maybe they haven't gotten, or they don't believe that they've gotten to this happy ending yet. So
Sure.
who's gonna believe in me and what I'm teaching, or what I have to say? What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. And that's a common thing. Like if you're putting out an info product, right? And you have something that you're going through, whatever it might be, and you're putting it out there, but then you have like that, I'm a pretender. I haven't really done this, or well, who am I to kind of put my story out there? When you really break it down, because I've struggled with that in the past. I think almost everybody struggles with that, to be honest. Who am I to kind of push this out there? But the big thing is there, Brian, is you start with the end in mind, and just also keep in mind that if you've gone through it, odds are there is a whole host of people that have gone through the exact same scenario that you have in very similar ways, if not the same way. Yeah. Now, to do that and be successful on the internet and put a product out there that's helping people do something specific, you don't need a huge amount of people. People think, oh, like, I want 1 million people to see it. Well, you probably don't, right? You probably want to have like that 400 to 500 people that are in the same boat see it, and then 100 people buy it and join your little tribe there that you have and interact with your story in reality. And then you get more testimonials and you do all that. But the only way you get to do that is if you actually put that out there. And that's the tough part. Like, people struggle about putting themselves out there, myself included. I've had those issues over the years. And sometimes you just got to push your way through that and get it out there and test it. And the biggest thing is what people fear is it's going to fail. And that's true. I've had plenty of failures, but I've also had a lot of successes by doing that too. And sometimes you just got to go for it. Does that answer the question there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really just thinking about the fear of feedback is really what people are afraid of.
I hate it. I hate myself on video. I hate myself on my voice sometimes on podcasts, and I listen to them and I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I look at some of my views and, they're not astronomical. They're small. And then I look at it and I'm like, wow, there was 300 people that actually listened to that all the way through. And I'm like, really? Like 300 people are listening to that, and then you kind of go, okay, well, maybe there is something to it. And then you get your first piece of feedback and it's positive and you're like, okay. And then that's when it gets going.
That's all you need, right? This is just the one.
You kind of need that one pat on your back. It's kind of like my mom used to say, like, well, even if you're having a bad day, it's okay. And, you just kind of push along here. And sometimes that's all you need. It's just that little push. It might not be anything tangible. It's just somebody in your corner.
Right. So let's talk about intention, because we have to be intentional throughout this process as well. So you're not going to just go live and tell your story and then have some kind of intention. Like, you're not going to say goodbye. Thank you for listening. You want to get them back to the business. So you have to start to bring in that call to action, and tell us how to do this strategically once we get this taken care of. Once we start getting into the flow.
So what I always do, and I work with a couple different people in creating content. I have a person that helps me with video. I have a person that helps me with podcasts now. And, you follow a similar pattern, right? So when you start out and you want to get people to some sort of CTA, you want to get them to do something, put their email address in, go somewhere, buy something, whatever that might be, you want to step into that, right? So you eliminate that one other thing that you said, that fear part of like putting yourself out there. So you got to tell that story and say, Brian, what I'm going to tell you today is going to help you do this. Just tell them exactly what it is. Now, today is part 1 of that. We have 7 more parts, but if you stick with me, by the end of this is what's going to happen. This, and this, right? Now you just told them the whole thing. Like, if you go out there and this is one of my neat little secrets that I've learned over the years. If you go out and you're going to buy a product, most of the information online that's sold is sold in the pre-sales letter, the offer, something. Now, there might be a couple little pieces missing, but the bulk of it's right there. But that's what hooks you in. So when you do that and you create a strategy, so you're going to do a video series of content that talks about your product or service. So you're going to tell them exactly what they're going to get during these free videos or free email or whatever. And you tell that story and you be very deliberate about it. Hey, this is what you're going to get. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And this is what's going to be the end result finally. But stick with me and you're going to tell them a story. And then you finish the first video. But at the end you go, now what's most important is go back and rewatch this one, because in video 2, here's what we're going to do. And here's where it really impacted my story. And I'll continue this on part 2, right? Now you can do that all in one video and just keep going and have different segments. You can do that broken up into different podcasts or smaller pieces, like on Instagram, where you say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I released my first video in my series here, and it's talking about something I just developed that could help you, buy more houses or be more successful or save more money or whatever it might be. And then you tell them that little story right there on Instagram and say, hey, swipe up or the links in my bio and take a look at this, and this will help you do X. And you're just being very, very focused. And then you can get in the story on the longer forms, but always map it out. And in each section, have a call to action. So first, your call to action might be watch video 2. And then at the end of video 2, it might be, hey, watch video 3. And in video 3, I'm going to show you something that you could get right now to implement in your life that can help you do X. Right? So now you're getting to it faster, but you're stepping them through. So then they get to know you, they like you, and then hopefully trust you enough to buy.
Yeah, I like that. That's great stuff, man. So let's talk about telling a good story and telling a boring story. You know what I'm saying? Because you can read a book and be like, oh, this is great. This is a great book. I love it. And you can read another book and you're like, oh, this sucks. So how do you bring the magic into your story? Is there a formula for that?
I think the biggest thing online, let's just keep it online, digital marketing, because that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is don't lie about whatever you're doing. Just don't BS anybody, because people see through it. That's what turns them off. And if you're genuine about it and you have something that you really feel excited about, empowered about, and something that you know will help people, let them know about that, right? But the big thing is people don't like fake, like when I do these videos, 9 times out of 10, like I have my counter in this part of my office, like cleaned off with all of my stuff. And right now it's kind of a mess, right? And that's like freaking me out. But I had like back-to-back interviews today, right? And I totally forgot about it. And you know what? I just left it going. I got a pile of Bad Rhino clothes right back here. I got my plants over here that I was watering, and I got a stack of just stuff over here by my journal. And like normally that freaks me out, right? But I'm also like, hey, I got this scheduled time. I got to hit this one. I got to do this one. And don't worry about that little stuff as you kind of progress through this. And I think, things start to come together. So like just being real, like I'm just explaining that right now because I feel the need, but it's also something that shouldn't stop somebody from meeting with you or doing a podcast interview. And normally I'm just at home today and not in the office. And, those sort of things are kind of taken care of, in my studio and the office. Right now I'm like, oh, I got other things to do. So that sort of stuff is, important to think about, that I'm just being me, right now. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do, to eliminate, all that stuff that we were just talking about. Just get out there and you start to put those things out there, and you don't worry about those things because you have to get them out there. And as you start to get that feedback, you can refine it. Right. And I'll just make a note next time when I have 4 interviews in one day, make sure I move my plants because it drives me nuts.
I didn't even notice the plants.
But now you did, right? I'm telling the story while
Right. So last question, man. This has actually been amazing, man. It's just great stuff. So last question I asked of all of my guests goes something simple like this. There are people out here now, they're watching you, they're listening to you later. And they also want to get into the point where they're helping people tell their stories with their marketing.
Sure.
And you're beginning to really spark their interest more in how to do this. Can you tell them, and I'll put you front and center, how they can become an authority in this space?
Well, I think the biggest thing is having something that you're passionate about. And you don't have to be like rah passionate about, but you know it works, right? And you put something together, again, a product or service that's going to help somebody, and you can explain the benefits to them. And being able to explain the benefits to them is really key. Like, don't just say I have the best product to make you more money, right? That's just not going to be it. But tell them that the benefits are, I have something that can help you spend more time with your family, have better health, all that. You're not talking about the specific product. You're talking a little bit more about the results. People don't want to necessarily hear that you have the best thing since whatever to help them make more money. What they want to hear is, how is it going to solve my problem? And I think that's the biggest thing, that the biggest lesson you can learn to become an authority. Number two, I will say, is actually know what you're talking about. There's plenty of other people that are selling stuff that don't know what they're talking about. And there's no need to put another, BS product out there, right? Don't try and just make money by selling something that doesn't work and you don't believe in. And then third and finally is, you're going to have to do a lot of testing and test certain things, do some research on what's working in terms of searching on Google, what people are looking for, and making sure your product or service fits into that, so that you have an audience. But then test it and then see what that audience brings back before you go too far down that path, and then refine it. Don't be afraid to refine something that you have based on what the market is dictating. I think that's the biggest failure I see in products, where somebody launches an e-commerce site and they're trying to tell a story on something because they think it'll sell. And the market's like, nah, we want this, or no, we want that. And they don't listen to that, and they get stuck with that idea, and they go so far down that path that they get disenfranchised because they didn't listen to the actual market, and they never become that authority that they want in that space.
Great stuff, man. That's perfect, buddy. That is absolutely amazing. So please tell people where they can find you after the show, Marty.
Cool. So I'm co-founder and owner of a digital marketing agency called Bad Rhino. So you can find us at badrhinoinc.com. Just go all the way through. You can find a variety of things on Bad Rhino. But if you really want to connect with me, we won't get back to you right away, but you can actually email me at info@badrhinoinc.com. So that's BADRHINOINC.com. Just put Brian Arnold Authority Project in the subject line, so someone will see what it is and make sure it gets to me. And I'll answer your question on anything that we talked about today or anything else that you might be thinking about. And then if you just search Bad Rhino and Marty McDonald on Google, you'll find us all over YouTube and all the other social media channels. You can check out some great information there.
Great, man. That's amazing. Awesome, dude. We're good. You answered all my questions.
We're good?
Brilliantly. I love it. I love it. People, we're good today. As I always say, remember, build it, share it, and they will come. We'll see you next time. We're out.
Thanks, Brian. It was awesome.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Authority Project. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, we want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and give an honest review. Share and tell your friends so they can hear too. And for even more authority building tactics, be sure to sign up at theauthorityletter.com. Get free weekly content and ongoing digital product giveaways to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. We certainly hope you got a key takeaway, or maybe an aha moment from today's broadcast. Just remember, it's your authority. Build it, share it, and they will come. Until next time.